Hey there, little people. I hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to start using Adobe InDesign, which is what you see here. We've played around with Photoshop pretty extensively and Illustrator a little bit. InDesign is where all of these things come together. If you asked me which of the Adobe Visual Design Suite I would want if I could only have one program, this would be the one. You're able to do some minor photo editing here. You're able to create vector graphics as well, but it works in a multi-page setup. So that means you can create all kinds of different pages. This is where I keep my little documents and forms that I pass out, or do prom tickets where I have to have thousands of tickets on a, well, not thousands, but a lot of tickets on a single document, or things like project little breakdowns that I have set up. So anytime you're making things that are multiple pages, this is where you're going to go. We're going to start pretty simple with making a magazine cover today. So you'll need to download the file in the classroom and follow along with what we're going to do here. So of course first you'll need to download Adobe InDesign, so download that first. Once you have Adobe InDesign downloaded and it's on your computer, you just click on it and it'll give you something that looks like this. Where it says recent, it'll probably be blank because it's new, right? On the left hand side you can see where it says create new, or just like any of the other programs you can go up to file, new, and create document. Notice it's got book and library here, but it's just going to be create new document for what we're going to do. So click on that for me. Now this will open up the new document dialog, just like all the other Adobe programs that you've seen. They all work very similar. I want you to call this your name -cc for crash course. And I'm going to leave everything else the same. You might want to change the units to inches so you know what it is, 8.5 by 11. Currently I only want one page. This is one of the major differences here, is because this is a multiple page document. You have the option of creating your pages. You'll see start on page, that's just where it starts at. Facing pages and primary text, we'll go into those when we get to them. One thing I do want to change right here is where it says columns. Because you're doing multiple pages and you're doing, multi-page layout with a lot of text generally, you need to focus on your columns a little bit more. Your eye doesn't like to read all the way across a whole piece of paper. You'll see that when teachers pass it out and there's this long thing and there's no column breaks, it's harder to read. Versus if it has columns, it's a little shorter for your eye. You feel like you're getting somewhere. You read a little better on that. So I'm just going to put that to two columns. Everything else I'm going to leave the same. 8.5 by 11, 2 columns, and make sure you name it. Hit create. Alright. So this is what you're going to get. This is the basic layout of Adobe InDesign. You'll notice it looks very similar to your other Adobe programs. There's not a lot different. It is at its base form right here, so everything's very simplified, like properties, pages, and libraries are the only tabs you have on the right hand side in your workspace. If you look at your tools on the left, you'll see a lot of these tools look very similar to some of the tools you played with before, like the pen and pencil tool right there, or the text and line tool. You've got your shape tools. A lot of this is very similar. There's a few new ones. You won't need a lot of them, but we will play around with some. The first thing we're going to do today is set up your workspace so that it works a little bit better for what you're trying to do. I'm going to get my big head out of the way here. And I'm going to look at the right hand side. So this right hand side is where your workspace takes place. Remember, all of these panels together create a workspace. So we need to make sure that we're set up to do this correctly. So I want you to pull out the ones that you already have. So properties, pages, and libraries. And on libraries you can actually hit the little X to get rid of it. We're not going to use any of that. Move me over a little more. And then we're going to look at getting some different panels that we can work with. Now if these are extra large like they are on mine, you can shrink them down just by grabbing that bottom corner and kind of pushing them up some just to get them out of the way. Alright, so underneath window, remember anytime you're looking for panels that you don't have, they're always under window. So we're going to go to window and we're going to look for some different panels to use, some that you've seen before, some you may not have. First one I want to get is color. So I want to go to Adobe, or I'm sorry, window, color, color. When you click on that, it comes in with color and stroke. Keep those together, just move them into the center. I want to go to Window, Color again, and this time I want to get Gradient, and I'm going to put that right there with the color batch. And I'm going to go to Window, Color, and I'm going to get Swatches as well. And I'm going to pull Swatches right there next to Color, Stroke, and Gradient. So that's all in one. Color, Stroke, Gradient. Remember, if it's in your way, you can always double click on it and kind of shrink it down. So that's what I want for that. Next, I want to go to Window, and I want to make sure I have my Links panel. And that'll come with links and layers. That's fine. Keep those together. You'll notice layers in here isn't really like Photoshop. It's more like Illustrator and how it kind of breaks down. But I want to make sure I have those. Let's see, what else? Window, I want to get Align, and that should come with Pathfinder. That's good. You know what the Pathfinder is. We used that before. We'll use that a little bit more here. The alignment tools really become essential in InDesign. Don't need that. I got stroke. Okay, Window Text Wrap. We want to make sure we have this. Text wrap is basically like putting text around an image so that it's not right on top of it. You can have it on top if you want. And then we need our type panel. So Window Character or Window Type Character. And no, it doesn't come in with that. I'm going to put that with Text Wrap. I'm going to go to Window Type, and I'm going to go to Paragraph. Because we're dealing with large amounts of text, we really need to keep these character panels where we can see them, these type panels. Window Type, and I'm going to get glyphs just in case. And glyphs are all those, you know, funny symbols in a font that you don't see all the time, but you may need. Alright, so that's my basic setup. I'm just going to put these together a little better. Pages is probably the most important panel in InDesign. You haven't seen it before, but it is definitely the biggest panel. So we need to make sure that's on top, and that's the most prevalent thing. I'm going to stick links right next to it. Links are like a connection from your pictures that you have in InDesign to your computer, because your pictures that you'll see in InDesign aren't actually on the document. They're linked to the document on your computer. I know it's a little weird. Layers, drag that over, and properties. Alright, so these are my setups. I've got pages, links, layers, properties. I've got Align and Pathfinder, color, stroke, gradient, and swatches together. And then I've got character, text wrap, paragraph, and glyphs together. So I want to make sure that all of those are in that order. Next, I'm just going to stack them together. And we've done this before, so this should be normal to you. Grab this top bar right here and hover at the bottom of your properties or pages panel and look for that blue line. When you see that, release. That'll place it underneath. I'm going to do my Align and Pathfinder underneath that, and my character and text and glyph underneath that. Once done, I'll grab the very top bar and drag the whole thing to the right. Now remember, it's not going to automatically snap over here based on where the right edge is. It's going to snap based on where your mouse is. So you see when my mouse goes over there, it highlights blue. So that's where I'll place that, and I'll release, and it pops right up. I'm going to double click on some of these to kind of shrink these. I don't need them all the time, just to get them out of the way. Character you should probably keep big. Remember, you can hit these little double arrows right here to collapse them like this. This is kind of the way I like to have them in InDesign, so I'd recommend sticking to that. And open your Pages panel, because that's pretty essential. Alright. Oh, we forgot one. So go to Window, where is it? And hit Control. Now, the Control panel at the top in InDesign is probably the most extensive one in the set, and is definitely a place to keep in mind. Now, when you click on different things, things will change up here, but they don't change a whole lot. Not like they did in Illustrator or Photoshop. So keep an eye up here for your text. You can see you have almost all of your options for your character panel and your paragraph panel up here. So if I go down here to character and look, I've got all of this same stuff up here. So that'll save you a lot of time just having that control panel there. So keep an eye up there at it. Alright, so next thing we need to talk about is frames. Inside of InDesign, everything has a frame around it. And what do I mean by frame? I mean, if you grab this little tool right here, F is the shortcut on your keyboard, and just drag a square anywhere, this is your basic frame. So I don't want you to do anything for the moment. I just want you to kind of watch what I'm about to do. What I'm going to do is, currently this is a neutral frame, and I want to change this frame to be something different. There are three types of frames. There is, go away, yeah. There is a neutral frame, a text frame, and a picture frame. So you can kind of mix and match those some, but at the heart of it, they're always one or the other. So in this one, I'm going to turn this into a picture frame. So if I go to File and then Place, I can look on my computer, I can find the picture that I'm wanting. Hello rainbow, go away. I can find the picture that I'm looking to use, and I can place it in there, and you can see it may not look right. So this picture is bigger than this frame. You'll notice in the center I've got this little circle, and my hand tool comes up. I can click and drag this picture inside this frame. I can use this frame, grabbing the blue edge here, and I can cut off certain areas and kind of crop it how I want. So the frame is just that. Think of like a frame of a picture. You know, if the frame's smaller than the picture, you're going to cut off parts of the picture, right? Now, if I click right here in the middle, I'll notice this little orange line that shows up around the outside. That's the actual size of the picture. So the actual picture goes way off the page. And if I drag this over, I can see that it does. So getting kind of used to that takes a little bit of time. Just be patient with it. If I use my white arrow, my direct selection tool, I can click on that picture and I can kind of manipulate this a little better so I can shrink it down or move it around as I want. Basic picture frame. Now, if I delete that and I get my type tool, notice when I'm off this frame, it's got a square. When I get on this frame, it turns into a circle. If I click on this frame with that circular icon, it'll turn it into a text frame and I can type into it. Notice just like with text boxes in Illustrator, if I shrink this down or I alter it, the text kind of is meant to fit that form. And if I go too small, notice that little red plus symbol that shows up. That red plus symbol, hello mouse, thank you. That red plus symbol means there's overset text, meaning there's text that you can't see. And in InDesign, that's a big no-no, is having those red boxes. So be careful not to leave that sitting there. Alright, so on this document, the first thing I want you to do, so pick up the mouse. I want you to get your frame tool, and I want you to make a frame that covers the entire document. So that white edge all the way corner to corner to make one big X across the whole thing. This is a neutral frame currently, and we want to turn it into a picture frame. So you can go up to the top to File and then Place, or you can look at the shortcut right there. On PCs, I believe it's Control D. On Macs, it's Command D. So I'll hit Command D, and I'll go looking for the picture. Now the picture you should have downloaded is this one, Kendrick Lamar on kind of a crumpled piece of paper. So that's what it should look like. Now if it covers the entire page, that frame that you made, then it fits perfectly right now. If your frame didn't quite go that far and you end up with a little bit of white on the edge, that's fine. You can always grab this frame and just kind of pull it out to meet that edge now. So there's no harm in it. If you want to rearrange it, or if you feel the picture's not quite fitting right, you can hit your white arrow. A is the same shortcut from Illustrator. It'll shrink me down. And you can grab these corners and shrink the image. Remember to hold Shift as you do this. If you shrink it down too much, you may start to see some white show up. Just click on the middle and drag up or drag down as needed. I don't want to see any white in that bottom though. So that's about what I'm looking for. I'm looking for his head to be underneath the margin line, which is this pink line, and I'm looking to be able to see the bottom of his feet. Alright. Now, I'm going to take this picture of Kendrick and I'm going to lock it, because I don't want to do anything else to it. I think this is perfectly fine where it is. I'm going to go up to Object and hit Lock. So that locks that image. You'll in fact see a little lock icon right there that shows that it is locked. Alright, next I want to frame out my layout. So I want to come up with an idea of how my layout's going to look, and I want to have that layout kind of set and ready. Go away. Have that layout kind of set and ready for my text. So these pink and purple lines that you see on the edges, these are your margin lines. No text should go past these pink or purple lines because you want it to be legible. You don't want it to be in the fold of a page, right? So we want to stay there. And these center purple lines are your column guides. We're going to use those in just a moment. For this first thing, I want you to click right here on this margin corner, hold, and drag to the right like this, covering about the top of his head, round down to his chin, and let go there. Currently, that is a neutral frame. This is your basic layout. Underneath that, I want you to give just a little bit of a gap, and I want you to create another frame that doesn't quite go all the way to the bottom of that pink line down there. And then over here, I want to create another text frame that does go all the way down to the pink line. So let me zoom out so I can zoom in so you can see it. So this is your basic layout of how we're going to do. I've got my top frame, there's going to be text here. I've got my left frame and my right frame. All of these are going to have text typed into them. Now for this exercise, we're going to use, and I'm going to put it over here to the side, one simple font. It's called Helvetica New. Yeah, that's too small. Skirt. Helvetica New. Now, this is going to be our font for everything. Helvetica New right there. Nope, that's not it. That's Helvetica. And if you need to type in here, you can do that as well. So the reason we're choosing Helvetica New is that, as you see, there are a lot of different fonts inside of that one font. Helvetica New's got everything from an ultra light italic to a bold, and this comes on almost every computer, so you should have this on your computer. I'm just going to start on regular. So this is going to be my font throughout this entire thing. Did I spell it right? Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my type tool. And if you're locked into a text frame like this, you can always hit escape to get out of it. So I'm going to get my type tool, and I'm going to hover my type tool over this top box right here, this top neutral frame. And I'm going to click on it once. Okay, let me zoom in here. And I'm going to type the word Vibe, because we're doing a cover for Vibe magazine. So V-I-B-E, all capital letters. I'm going to highlight that. You can click, hold, and drag over it, or you can hit Command A as long as your cursor is blinking in there to select it. And we're going to change this to Helvetica New Bold. And we're going to push the size up pretty large here. I'm just going to sit here and hold on it and we'll see. Yeah, about 120, somewhere in there. It's probably good. So that's going to be the basic size of my font. Now, as you can see, it's not quite fitting right. That's okay. We'll fix that in just a moment. The color of this needs to stay black because we're going to do something with it in just a moment. Now, like I said, the control panel at the top has most of your text options already up here, and if you hover over them, they'll kind of tell you what they do. So like kerning, tracking, leading, we've talked about all of these before. What we want to look for is the tracking option right here. And I'm just going to push up on that for a couple of moments, and I'm going to spread this word out. The I and the B should kind of be on each side of Kendrick's head if this is done right. And the E should not be disappearing. So if you noticed right there, I went too far and the whole thing disappeared. That's because it's too big to fit in this text frame. If I were to grab this text frame and make it a little bigger, it would show, but I don't want you to do that. So if it comes down to it and you're too kerned out, you can always come back. If it's covering a little bit of his face, that's fine. If you want to click on the image and kind of move him over, it's locked, but if you wanted to, you could do that as well. Alright, so I'm going to highlight this text, and you'll notice it lights up like this. I've got this as Helvetica New, bold. I've got 120 font and 740 on my tracking. Yours may be a little different. I also want to center it. So over here on the right, you can see the option to kind of center it, and that's just to make sure it's good. Alright, so Next, what we want to do is we want to create a little interest with this, and we're going to use a tool that you haven't seen before. So over here on the left-hand side, you've got your gradient tool. You know what that is. But next to it, you've got something called the gradient feather tool. And if you look closely, you'll see a checkerboard pattern in that. Checkerboard patterns, as we know, means transparency. Feather means kind of a fading of color. So I'm going to use that tool. I'm going to start right here at the bottom of the B and kind of push up, top of the B and push down. And I want to be able to see that this is the word vibe without, being able to see the whole letter. So notice right here on the B, if you start to see it curl in and you see a little fading of this, you'll see that that's the word vibe. You'll notice that that's not an R. The I, the V, and the E, they still have a good look to them regardless. But we want to make sure that we have just a little touch of that bottom of that B. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. And you can try this in little different ways. What you're doing is you're clicking, holding, and dragging down. I'm holding shift as I do that so that I keep a straight line, so that I have a nice even fade. And I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so highlight your text, and if you want to play with your colors, you can always do that. Don't feel like you have to stick on my colors. So if I want this to be blue or red, I can do that, and I'll leave it as red because I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so that's the headline of your set. Now, what I'm going to challenge you to do is, using only Helvetica Neue, I want you to create the text on the left and right hand side of this. Now, the challenge of this is that Helvetica Neue has multiple sizes and setups. It's going to be up to you to figure out kind of the sizes and looks. Attached in today's Google Classroom is an image of this text. I want you to look at that, and I want you to try to recreate that. A couple of things you may come into problems with, and I'm going to pull up my example so I can see it here. There we go. Alright, so a couple of things you may come into to see. So I'm going to type in Miguel, and I'm hitting enter just to move down. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. One of the things you're going to struggle with is finding the correct font. You can always click right here on the color theme tool and choose your eyedropper tool, and you can select fonts and kind of click on them to make that font this font. You got to play around with it a little bit. I think that's a condensed black. I think it's a much smaller size. You're just going to have to kind of tinker around with this, and that's what I want to see you do. Is I want to see you experiment with this. Feel free to change the leading, the kerning, the tracking. See what works for you, and if you can make it work correctly. Pay attention to your alignment, whether it's left aligned or right aligned. On this left side, everything is going to be left aligned. Everything on the right hand side is going to be right aligned. Now, the last thing you'll need to do is create a barcode. So down here, if you click, hold, and drag with your text tool, you'll get a text box. I want to type in some gibberish here, and I'm going to go looking for a barcode font. Now, if you don't have this, you can find it on Da Font, right? So Da Font, go to Da Font, and there's actually a whole section for barcodes inside of Dingbats. So right there, barcodes, and you can download any kind of barcode font. I mean, use it as you would like. I'll download that. It's called what? Barcode font. Simple enough. I remember anything ending in TTF, you just double click on, hit install font, and it should be that simple. So I'm going to back out of that and go back to my InDesign. Now, with this random text selected, if I come up here and I type in barcode, it should already be on my computer. And look, I've got a barcode. Alright. Now, the trick to barcodes is that they need to be black in color, but they need to have a white box behind them. So after you've kind of made your barcode, right here, you will see your rectangle tool. You'll kind of click, hold, and drag to create a box, and you'll need to color it up here at the top, paper. So I'll do that, and just like with Illustrator, you can send this to the back, but if I do that, it'll go all the way behind Kendrick here. I'm just going to grab the barcode and hit Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, and then put my white box behind it. So there's my barcode, and you see it says whatever gibberish you want it to say. So I'm going to pull up a final version of what this is supposed to look like, and I want you to attempt to match it. Okay, so this is your final version of it right here. A couple of things that I noticed as I was kind of playing around with it that you might need to know. First, to change colors, highlight the text and look up here at the top for your color. You can see it in the control panel. You can see it in your toolbar. You also have options over here with color and swatches, which they're pretty plain to start with. You kind of got to build them up to have swatches. But you can find whatever you want in color. If you don't see the right colors, you can click this little sandwich icon and hit CMYK, and that'll give you better sliders. Next, over here on the right, I want you to notice that some of this is a kind of a gray shade. So you'll need to highlight specific words here like movies. And if you go up to the top and you choose black or registration, you'll see that it has an option up here for tint. What I did to get that was I dropped that tint to about 70%, and that turns it to that color of gray that I've got throughout these. A couple of other things, when you're going through these, if you don't have enough space at the bottom of your setup, what might be happening is that your font is too large, check up here, or that your leading is too big. So sometimes you might have to shrink things down a little bit by playing with this leading to make things fit in the right way. Alright, so this is your final version. Feel free to pause right here or check the version that I've got in the classroom and try to create this as best you can. Again, this is the early days of InDesign. It's going to take a little time to get used to it. If yours looks like mine, good job. Take your screenshot, send it to the classroom. Thank you guys. Have a good day.